Good morning, everyone. Alberta's regulated iGaming market is now live. This marks an important step forward for our province and reflects nearly 2 years of work to build a market founded on strong player protections and social responsibility. From the very beginning, our focus has been clear: protect Albertans, especially young people, and ensure that those who choose to gamble online can do so in a responsible environment. Today, Albertans have a responsible, legal alternative where operators are held to high standards of conduct and accountability, and where player protection comes first. The reality is simple. Online gambling has been available to Albertans for years. Before today, it was estimated that roughly 70% of online gambling in Alberta took place through unregulated operators. Those sites often operated with limited or no player protection, standards, or social responsibility measures. Standing still was not the responsible choice. Albertans were already gambling. The question was not whether online gambling existed. The question was whether it should happen with meaningful safeguards in place. Our government chose to act, and the response that we got from industry was very positive. They see the Alberta advantage: low taxes, a competitive business environment, and a government that's willing to work with industry while maintaining high standards to protect Albertans. We've seen that confidence reflected across our economy, from a new industry-backed pipeline proposal that would open Alberta's energy to new markets to one of the largest private sector investments in Canadian history through a $13 billion data center project. Companies continue to choose Alberta because they know we offer a stable, competitive place to do business. That same approach is reflected in our regulated iGaming market. We welcome new opportunities, but we also expect companies to operate responsibly and to meet our high standards. Today, 22 registered sites are now available in Alberta's regulated market. The Alberta iGaming Corporation conducts and manages the market on behalf of the province, while Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis regulates the industry and enforces compliance to protect the integrity of the system. Together, they provide strong oversight and accountability. This market is open, but operators are expected to earn the privilege of participating. If this market was going to exist, player protection had to come first. That was not an afterthought. It was the foundation of everything that we built on. Albertans will have access to responsible gaming tools, including financial and time limits, gaming activity statements, and a province-wide self-exclusion program that works across regulated online platforms, casinos, as well as racing entertainment centers. Operators are also expected to actively monitor for signs of high-risk gambling behavior and intervene when necessary. We've also put strict rules in place around advertising. Operators cannot target minors or vulnerable individuals through advertising or marketing. Player protection and social responsibility are not optional. They are requirements for operating in Alberta. So, to every operator entering Alberta's regulated market, let me be very clear. Operating in Alberta is a privilege, not a right. We expect every operator to put player protection and social responsibility at the forefront of their operations. If you meet those expectations, Alberta offers a fair, competitive, and well-regulated market. But if you fail to meet our high standards, or if you take advantage of Albertans, there will be consequences. Operators that fail to meet our player protection and social responsibility requirements risk losing the ability to operate in this province. So protect Albertans. Follow the rules. That is the expectation for every operator doing business in Alberta. Today marks an important step forward. We are replacing an environment with limited oversight with one built on accountability, player protection, and social responsibility. Now, I want to thank the many partners who helped make this possible. Thank you to Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis, the Alberta iGaming Corporation, operators, our partners, and especially the public servants whose work brought this market to life. I also want to thank Dan Keene and the team at the Alberta iGaming Corporation for the tremendous work that has gone into preparing today's launch. We are proud of what has been built because it gives Albertans a more responsible, regulated option by strong player protections and clear accountability. And lastly, I want to say congratulations to all of the 22 operators that have chosen to not only be a part of our market, but to put player safety and player responsibility first. So thank you, and I would now like to invite Dan Keene to come on up here and say a few words.
Good morning, and thank you, Minister Nally. I'm honored to be here today on behalf of the Alberta iGaming Corporation, the AIGC. Together, along with our regulator, the AGLC, the AIGC will conduct and manage a strong and safe regulated iGaming market. As Minister mentioned yesterday, approximately 70% of online gambling activity in Alberta was happening on unregulated offshore platforms. Player protection was inconsistent, social responsibility was often an afterthought, and revenues flowed out of our province. Today, all that changes. Albertans have access to a regulated, accountable online gambling environment that puts player health and safety first. Albertans deserve a regulated iGaming market that plays by the rules and maintains the highest standards of integrity and security. Our role at AIGC is to uphold these standards. Our focus is on the well-being of Albertans through social responsibility, privacy, and protection, and we'll ensure every operator in Alberta follows the rules. I want to be clear, regulation is protection. Responsible gambling is a pillar of the regulated market, with player safety written directly into our operator agreements. Specifically, every approved operator must meet stringent responsible gambling standards that have been independently accredited through our mandatory third-party responsible gambling certification. This accreditation is not a rubber stamp. It is a comprehensive, internationally recognized social responsibility program based on 9 standards and 48 pieces of criteria, and all approved operators must have it in place prior to market launch in Alberta. Additionally, AGLC's centralized self-exclusion program must ensure players are educated about the risks of gambling and provide the ability to block access to regulated sites and land-based casinos, should they choose to, through one central portal at selfexclusion.ca. All regulated operators must adhere to strict advertising and social media standards. Paid advertising is not allowed in locations where the audience consists primarily of minors. Age gating tools must be used in digital advertising, including the 18+ icon, and self-excluded individuals must be removed from all pre-subscribed marketing lists. We're also enforcing the mandatory inclusion of our 211 messaging in all operator advertising. 211 Alberta is a free 24-hour confidential support line available for those experiencing mental health issues involved with gambling. Because online gambling should be fun. It's a form of entertainment, not seen as an opportunity to make money. Additionally, there are verification standards to protect our youth. All Alberta players must undergo strict identity and age verification process before entering a registered site. For players wanting to know which operators have successfully passed this due diligence process and applied consistent standards and the integrity markers, to support Albertans' choices, the AIGC logo is your mark to trust. Regulated and approved operator websites must include the AIGC logo within the footer of each page, and the AIGC logo must be present in the profile page masthead of all owned social media accounts. So Albertans, be sure to look for the AIGC logo for a site that has passed our integrity measures. Choosing an approved operator is also choosing to build Alberta. As Minister mentioned, under the unregulated model, iGaming money left the province entirely. Now, a portion of revenues from approved online gambling sites will be reinvested into Alberta's General Revenue Fund to support programs and services that Albertans rely on every day. 3% of total gross gaming revenue is reinvested directly, 2% to First Nations and 1% into social responsibility initiatives, which includes research on gambling, supporting mental health and treatment programs. So this is just the beginning. We will continue to support our operator base, strengthen our compliance, develop our social responsibility programming, and improve player protection tools. And this will only be possible through continued collaboration, confidence, and strong participation with the regulatory playing field that's been established. I'm grateful to Minister Nally for his leadership, to AGLC for their partnership, to our board, to our AIGC staff, and to operators who came ready to meet our standards. We built this market the right way. Now we must continue to innovate alongside it, all the while putting Albertans first. The Alberta iGaming Corporation is for integrity, for fun, and for Alberta. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We're now going to take questions from the media, starting with those who are here in person. There's a microphone just at the back there. Ask you to make your way back there, and once you get back there, before asking your question, please state your name and outlet, and we're doing one question, one follow-up today. First, the mic. Go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren Boothby, City News. So the first question for the minister is, why are you making these changes? Like, who was asking for it? Was it a lot of Albertans? Was it lobbyists from gambling or sports industries?
We made this change because we knew that Albertans were gambling. We also know that 70% of that gambling happens in unregulated black market sites. And I'm going to be frank, some of these sites are quite repugnant. And I've heard stories of people that have attempted to quit these sites. And unfortunately, once you sign up, they continue to send you reload bonuses. So for someone who's struggling with problematic gambling behaviors, this is unacceptable. So we're putting in these player safety and responsibility standards so that anyone who wants to quit can, and they will also have access to the gold standard of treatment for people with problematic gambling behaviors, and that is intensive outpatient-based therapy.
Follow-up?
Yep. And has the province researched the potential impact on those who have gambling addictions of making it more widespread, and any concern this could making it more widespread could cause more harm for people with addictions?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that question, and I want to be very clear. We are not bringing online gambling to Alberta. It is already here. It is alive and well. And my message to people is that if you're not gambling today, please don't start. Okay? But if you are placing the occasional bet online, if you do like to gamble, we want to put player safety and player responsibility first. I have heard from some individuals that would prefer that we keep our head in the sand, that we pretend it doesn't exist. And the problem with that is that responsibility is not at the forefront of everything that some of these operators are doing. And in addition to that, the money is leaving the jurisdiction, which means they're not paying for treatment. What we're putting in place today is a regulated, legal site that is going to put player safety and player responsibility first. And it's also going to ensure that not only do all Albertans that are struggling with problematic gambling behaviors have access to treatment, but it will be paid for by the operator. And that's the right thing to do.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Next on the mic.
Eric Bay, Global News. Minister, you talked about the requirements to intervene if there's any sort of high-risk behaviors. What sort of thresholds do you have to determine what's high risk, and how will the province be enforcing that actually does happen?
There are several markers of problematic gambling behavior. So, for example, if you see someone that makes one $10 bet a week, and all of a sudden, that extrapolates to $100 bets they're making several times a week, that would be an example of one of the markers that operators would be on the lookout for. And then they're required to intervene, to reach out to the individual, and to offer assistance.
You also talked about that outpatient therapy part of it. Will that money that's being reinvested, will that go towards that? And will it cover if people can't afford to get the help they need?
Absolutely. Anybody. And by the way, most people are able to make a sports bet online, and most people are able to gamble recreationally, but we know there's a small percentage that will struggle. For all of those individuals that are struggling, treatment will be free of charge, and it'll be paid for by the operators.
Great. Next on the mic.
Minister, last week, Polymarket geo-blocked itself in Alberta. And you talked about some of those outside of the province sites. Some of them are pretty pervasive. They pretend to be like the River Cree Casino. They pretend to be the Grey Eagle Casino. Is there anything you can do to block their access to Albertans? Or do you just have to say, please look for the logos, look for the regulated sites?
Yeah, Polymarket made the decision themselves to geofence themselves out. So I think that was good news. We know that we can't shut down the internet, but the best way to deal with the black market is to have a healthy, regulated market. And so our message is look for the AIGC logo. If you see that logo, you know that you're playing with an operator that plays by the rules. That means if you win, you're going to get paid. It means if you want to quit, you're going to be allowed to quit without receiving further messages encouraging you to make bonuses, that type of thing.
And the second question I have is about dispute resolution. You talk about player safety. What are some of the requirements that these sites have to have in terms of player resolution if there's withdrawals or a bet that they feel wasn't fulfilled?
They can always reach out to the AIGC if they have any concerns there.
Great. Thanks. Next to the mic there.
Hi, Minister. Sarah Hamilton from CBC. You mentioned earlier that the revenue coming from the registered sites will go to the General Revenue Fund. I was wondering if you could further break down how these funds will come back towards Albertans.
Well, we generally don't earmark funds. So whether it comes from royalties from the oil and gas, whether it comes from AGLC, it goes into general revenues, and then it's a decision of Treasury Board in terms of how that's allocated. But what I think the important message is here is we are taking 2% of gross gaming revenues, and we are distributing that to First Nations, and the Minister of Indigenous Relations will have more to say in the very near future in terms of what that's going to look like. And then the 1% of gross gaming revenues will go to things like responsibility and treatment. And so those are the only funds that will actually be earmarked.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Seeing nobody left at the floor mic, we're going to head to the phones. Operator, can you please put through the first caller?
Your first question comes from Liam Newbigging from Edmonton Journal. Please go ahead.
Hey, Liam at the Journal here. If there's concerns about more people starting to gambling, why not have stricter rules for advertising?
Well, there's first of all, we do have stricter rules on advertising. We've made it clear that that hockey players, that celebrities will not be able to participate in online gambling ads promoting that. They can only be used to promote player safety and responsibility. But we also have to partner with Ontario as well, because we've been receiving the online gambling ads for I think 3 years now. Because whatever comes through Ontario for the NHL games is what seeps into this province. So we did want to be aligned with them as well. But we do believe that we have strict guardrails around advertising. Vulnerable Albertans will not be targeted with advertising, and you can't market towards young people as well. But if we go down this path and we discover that we haven't gone far enough, then we'll take action.
Great. And a follow-up?
Okay. Yeah, follow-up. Why not charge more? I know it's about 20% of revenues will go to the province. Why is that? How do you sell on that number, and why not charge more?
Well, the challenge we have is these sites are already operating in the province and not paying any tax revenue. All of the money is leaving for offshore destinations. So if you make the tax rate too high, they just won't participate in this market. So we had to find that sweet spot. Now, I'll give you an example. New York State charges a 50% tax rate, and I believe they had 5 operators go live. And that's a much more significant market than Alberta. We're going live with 22 operators, so we know that we're pretty close to getting the tax rate right. Because at the end of the day, this is not about the revenue. This is about the channelization. How much of that black market can we channelize into the legal regulated market? Because the more you get behaving responsibly, the more protected Albertans will be.
Right. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Your next question comes from Moses Woldu from CTV Calgary. Please go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. Moses Woldu here with CTV Calgary. I just wanted to ask either one of you can answer this. What lessons did you learn from Ontario in their rollout, and how did that really influence the rules and the safeguards that have been put in place today here in Alberta?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that question, and I'd like to give Ontario a shout out because they were leaders in this space, and a lot of what they did was a roadmap for us. But it was an opportunity to do some lessons learned, and one of them was they did not go live with system-wide self-exclusion. So this was a line in the sand for us at Cabinet, and I assured all of my colleagues that we're not going live until this is ready to go. So this means that there will be a button to push that will allow anybody struggling with problematic behaviors when it comes to gambling to opt out of online gambling, land-based casinos, and racing entertainment centers. And this is important because we know that people struggling with these behaviors do want to quit. The problem is they get up the next day or the day after and they want to start gambling again. Once you've hit that button, once you've opted out, you will not be able to retract that.
Great. And your follow-up?
Just about the self-exclusion program, how does that work, considering now it's not just a brick-and-mortar place, it's online, so it's everywhere, and the access is quite easy, and might be a higher risk for those who are trying to, or who are battling with this type of addiction. So are there certain guardrails that you have once you say, for example, sign out or, press a button to say, I don't want to gamble anymore. What type of process is there? Is there a 3-week reprieve? What elements are in place in that sense?
Well, opting out of one online casino means you'll be opting out of all of the online casinos so that you won't be able to go to any of them once you've opted out. And you'll also have the option of excluding yourself from land-based casinos as well. And so it'll be, as well as racing entertainment centers. And so we have security staff that are on the lookout for people that have opted out.
Right. Operator, can you please put through the next caller?
Your next question comes from the line of Don Bate from Calgary Herald. Please go ahead.
Hi, Minister, what's the bonanza here? You talked about 2%, 1% going here and there, but how much revenue, all told, a year are you expecting to get from these agreements? Are we talking many millions? What's the total?
We're forecasting for the first full year of online gambling that the government will generate $76 million. But again, I want to be clear, this has never been about the revenue for us. This has always been about how do we make online gambling a little safer? How do we make online gambling a little more responsible? That has always been on the forefront and is the most important piece. But to answer your question, $76 million.
Okay. How much, what happens with Play Alberta? I mean, Play Alberta has been offering all this stuff for ages. It was in a much lower profile way. Of course, it does some advertising. I've seen some TV ads for Play Alberta. So what happens to Play Alberta? Does this sort of fade out of the scene, or are you actually just one of the competitors with all these other ones now?
Play Alberta will compete with the rest of the market. We will now have an open and free market so that government will not be competing against, actually, the way we had it structured before is only government could participate in that space. And they did a great job, but they were only able to capture 30% of that channelization. And so they will now be competing with the private sector for as much of that channelization as they can.
Great. We're now just going to take one more question from the floor, and then we're going to wrap it up there. So at the mic there, please go ahead.
Sean McLean with CTV Edmonton. The government website says strict rules for advertising, marketing, and promotions to ensure operators are not targeting minors, high-risk and vulnerable individuals. But we're already seeing tons of gambling ads on almost every sports broadcast and all over online. How is your advertising going to be any different, and how will we see a reduction or an increase in advertising?
I don't. At the end of the day, well, I guess we'll have to see. But here's what I can say: the online gambling ads in Alberta didn't start today. We've already been getting them from Ontario. So I think if we see an increase, I think it will be fairly minimal. I don't anticipate that we'll see less all of a sudden. I mean, I think we can all agree that might not be a bad thing if we saw less. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm not expecting a significant increase because we've already been seeing those ads.
Great. And your follow-up?
Shifting topics real quick. Can you respond to some of the frustrations people are experiencing with the license renewals? We've spoken to people both in the registry offices and the people having to go and find old birth certificates, old marriage licenses, like things that they maybe can't get their hands on. Can you kind of respond to those frustrations? Yeah, I mean, first, I just reiterate that, to bring in the proper documentation, obviously, will make the process as seamless as possible. For those people that aren't able to find their birth certificate, they'll be able to do that at the registry if they were born in Alberta. For other individuals, if they're out of province, they will have to get that birth certificate, but they will be able to get an interim 60-day license while they're waiting to get their out-of-province driver's license. And look, this is a new process. In addition to being a new process, there's an extra step to get your healthcare card number put on the back. So we're seeing that it takes about 5 or 6 extra minutes to do that once you've got all the proper documents. But it is a new process. So we're asking Albertans, please be patient with the registrations. They are fully trained, but this is a new process, and it's probably going to take them a little bit longer than normal to get through this as we work through this learning curve.
Great. Thanks, everybody. That's all the time we have for today.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for coming.